Hey, was that thing cool or what? Now let's talk about cool tools. Let's talk about the router here. But focus on this one. I think something went crazy. Now I'm routing around the body with the template, just like normal, like every day. And then look here what happens. Wait, what? Wait. What? Look at that again. Slower motion. I think that was my router bit. Yeah, that's definitely a router bit. Okay. Well, not only is the vacuum not working on that, but neither is the clamp. So back to old reliable. I've built over 100 guitars with this little Porter cable router, and I guess I'm going to be building more with it. So here we go. And that's basically what it is. You saw it. It's a bearing bit, and the bearing follows along the template, and the bit cuts through the wood. Really simple, really easy. Used by many. Some use it in a table router. I've tried it in a table situation. Don't really like that as much as the handheld. I can control my path here because you want to go along the grain the right way. If you go the wrong way, not so good. Now this one's got the bearing on the bottom, so it's following the part that we already cut with the template. And this one has a guide bushing. Now this guide bushing is following the little track that I made out of my fretboards here. Now this is exactly the same tool that I used as a sled if you saw the previous video. I called it a ski trick, but there you go. Now we're just making sure that the truss rod channel is good. It's going to hold that thing nice and flat because you want that. You want a truss rod to be perfectly flat in there. Now here I'm getting a little fancy with the fretboard. Vernon wanted a narrower fretboard, so what I'm doing is getting it really narrow, as narrow as you think you can with the classical guitar strings. You got to remember with classical guitar strings that the high strings are the same thickness as the low strings. They're just made out of different material, most cases nylon. So that's what I'm doing, is making it thinner though, because he doesn't want it quite as wide as a normal classical guitar. Now here, see, I'm just splitting up this maple, some of the trimmings. It's the same maple that the top is, so it's that nice beautiful ambrosia. And then we're going to use it as a binding. So this is my poor man's shooter board here. Or I should say lazy man. It's not like it costs that much to make a real shooter board. It's just too lazy to do it. Distracted? Distracted is probably more like the word. I'm far from lazy. I rarely use one. Just enough here. And good old CA glue. So essentially we're just putting these on, and they're way too wide and they're way too long. But we're going to glue them on, get them all nice and sturdy, so then we could hack at them. And that means, yes, making sure they're glued from both sides, both ends, and through the drum sander we go. Get all nice and flat, which, as you can see, takes a couple times, but I'm doing both ends, so I flipped it over part of the way. And now back to the fretboard template. A little more shooter board action, a little more CA action. Trim the tab ends off. Sand it up. Look at that. Beautiful. Now we're just about ready to mount this thing onto the neck. I want to get as much trimmed here because once it's on that uni-body neck set, then it's going to be a little harder to trim. So I'm just making sure everything's good. Now here I'm using good old lineup pins. It's because I've got a darker fretboard, I'd rather not use the toothpicks. They don't blend in as well. So here I'm using black dot markers to do the trick. Also in the past I've had them wiggle a little bit when I've just put one on either side. So I like to do two and try to, cockeye them a little bit. So just less chance of wiggle. And we tape over the truss rod. Don't want glue getting down on that. Not that it will stick to the metal, but it will make a sticky truss rod. So just don't want it. So I put a little tape there to protect the glue from dripping down into the channel. And just making sure everything is nice and squared up and ready to go. Because when this is done and it's glued on, that will become my routing template for the neck. And here we go. Nothing more fun than watching some dude spread glue. Yeah. Thrilling TV. Yeah. And this is one of those situations where I know I don't need a lot of clampage. Probably could just get away with adding a little weight to this thing. And, you know, I could even use my railroad track anvil if I wanted to. Just put it on there and make enough weight. But, yeah, I like to do about, you know, whatever clamps are laying around. If I got 17, 18 clamps laying around, I'm using them. If I've got 21 clamps laying around, I'm using them. If I've got 7, I'm using them. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to use every clamp I've got. And now that everything's dried, it's been about a couple hours. Now we're going to shape it. So I'm just sawing to get it as close as possible to make less work for the router. And now we're going to slice a little bit of the headstock, and here's where I make a mistake. I'll show you later. Get into electric guitar making mode and forget that, oh yes, I need a wider stance there at the headstock for this guitar. And just slicing that neck down. Remember, this thing is just too big to fit in my saw, so got to use some hand tools. Handsaw. No big deal. And now we're routing it to shape. So again, I'm using that fretboard as my template. And I'm using the same bearing bit that you saw earlier. Just getting it nice and tight so everything's all fit together. And then, of course, got to use the good old flat bar. Just, you know, just kind of clean it up. Now, here's something that I just thought of doing after I took a little break after routing the neck there. And I looked at this and I thought, hey, that looks really cool. Let's do that. So I'm doing an end cap rather than just letting the fretboard end. I could have used a thin piece to make it blend in, but then I thought let's accentuate it a little bit, and so this is what I'm doing. So to glue it down, and then I'm just taking a little dust, just kind of fill it in, make sure everything blends in really well, and then what I'm going to do is just use weight rather than try to clamp it. So put the railroad track piece on there and let it sit overnight. Here it is the next day, and here we are, just hacking away at that thing, trying to give it a shape. Well, I guess it had a shape, but it was squared off. So now we're just kind of blending it, rounding it in. Just doing something a little different. Something, you know, you're just not going to see on a stock guitar. Just kind of ramps it down, just blends it in. And more chiseling, sanding, filing, chiseling, sanding, filing. So much fun. Actually, this is the stuff I love. I love taking, you know, a chunk of wood and turning it into something. And here we are, just getting that fretboard closer to ready. Got a little glue that came through the line-up pins. So just cleaning some of that glue out of the slots and clean up all the other slots that we can and getting this thing ready for radius. Now, if you recall, the way we started this video was with the really cool pneumatic sander that has just changed everything with how I could radius fretboards. This fretboard, however, we're not going to do that way. We're going to do the old-fashioned way. I'm not going to risk that thing slipping and me doing a James maneuver and whacking up the side of this beautiful guitar. I don't want to do that now. So here we are, just doing it the old-fashioned way, and I'm not putting much of a radius on here anyway, so there's no reason to use the other sander. And the other sander, it doesn't have the radius I want. Here we're going with the 20-inch radius. So I put a little bit of a compound. Started at the 16 up at the first 7 frets, and it's all 20 from there on. It's a classical guitar, and if you go pick up one just about anywhere, some of them are perfectly flat, no radius whatsoever. I'm just putting a little bit of a radius on there for them. Yeah, oiling it up, make sure it's all nice and smooth. And again, I'm still just making sure I get the sides just the way I want them. Seems a little bit wide still to me, so I'm just narrowing them down a little bit. So I've got the 60 grit on this poplar bar, and just kind of narrowing it down just a little. I'm trying to do it a little bit at a time, evenly, and then once I like it, I'm putting a little bit of a rounded edge on it. That maple's pretty soft and not too hard to carve at all. So again, going back, make sure the fret slots are clean. This is a constant battle, and I'll be doing it, several times more before I actually put the frets in, which should be next video, because I think we're just about done here. Just lining everything up, making sure it all looks good. Going to do somewhat of a test fit with the bridge. See, with those 2 rulers there, it gives me a way of actually getting a good readout on where the intonation zone is going to be. And get everything all lined up, make sure I don't lose my center line. And I'm checking string spacing, making sure that I didn't make the neck too narrow. And I'm not sure if I'm going to use this bridge anyway, or if I'm going to actually make one. I don't know what it is, but when you're working with a lot of standard electric guitars, using aftermarket hardware just seems like a normal thing to do. I mean, I would throw a hip-shot bridge on here if this was a standard electric or a Goto or something like that. But when it comes to doing something like this, getting an aftermarket pre-made wooden tailpiece or bridge, just, I don't know, something... it seems a little dirty about it. Like I should be actually making one. So I don't know. I haven't quite settled my demons on that one. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Would it be okay if I use that? I'm thinking even if I did, I might alter it a little bit, make it look a little more daintier. I don't know. Dainty is elegant. Something not so squared off. It just kind of doesn't look like it quite fits the look of this guitar. But at the same time, I mean, it's ready to go, and it's well made. It's ebony, so I don't know. Leave me a comment, please. I really appreciate that. Yeah, like I said, this is going to conclude. So once again, I can't thank you all enough for following along, commenting, helping me grow this thing. Doing it as organically as I possibly can without using too many clickbait tactics and all that. But please click like and subscribe, leave comments, and ring that bell. I really appreciate it. Thank you.